She was 32, a quiet teacher from Brazil who never believed in fairy tales. Not after 2 breakups, not after years of loneliness. But when a kind-eyed Canadian engineer messaged her on a dating app, commenting on her favorite book instead of her smile, she felt something different. Was this finally it? Was love waiting for her across the ocean? Emma Morrison's life was quiet. She lived in a small town in the interior of Sao Paulo where the streets slowed by 8 p.m. and the days blended together with the same soft rhythm. Wake up, teach literature at the local school, come home to her modest apartment, cook something simple, light yoga, sleep. On Saturdays, the routine bent slightly. She'd meet her best friend Claire for brunch or go to the gym, but even those moments felt predictable. At 32, Emma had learned not to expect much. After 2 failed relationships, both ending in heartbreak and financial stress, she had locked the door on romance. The last one left her drained. Promises, plans, and then silence, ghosted. She had stopped trusting her judgment, and even more, she had stopped hoping. Claire Fontaine, her closest friend and a graphic designer originally from Quebec, was the only person who still held on to hope for her. "You need a new start, Em," she said one night over coffee, scrolling through her phone. "Seriously, the men here don't see you. They don't deserve you." Emma laughed, dismissing the idea before Claire even finished, but Claire was persistent. "Try something new, an international dating app, date outside the box. Canadians are sweet, and look at me, I found love across borders, so can you." Emma hesitated, but more out of boredom than optimism, she gave in. Claire helped her set up a profile, selecting carefully the pictures where she smiled naturally. They wrote her bio: book lover, yoga beginner, hiking hopeful, English teacher, someone who hadn't given up completely. When she returned home that night, there was something unsettling about having her heart displayed through a screen for strangers. But within days, the messages started. Dozens at first. Some were polite, most weren't. Some were married. Others sent empty compliments or one-word greetings. It felt like a jungle, and she was already tired of fighting through the vines. And then one message stopped her mid-scroll. It wasn't flashy, it was just different. "If you enjoy Margaret Atwood, have you ever read Alice Munro? I have a signed copy I'd love to lend you someday." Emma stared at the message for over a minute, rereading it quietly to herself. It was specific, thoughtful, intentional, no emojis, no awkward pickup line. Just a genuine interest in what she loved most, books. The sender's name was Connor Mloud. She clicked into his profile cautiously, scanning every detail, looking for signs of insincerity, red flags, anything that might feel off. But instead, she found calm eyes, genuine smiles, and a life that felt grounded. 38 years old, civil engineer, Vancouver-based. His photos weren't filtered or staged. One had him covered in mud on a hiking trail. Another smiling with a golden retriever, Benson, the caption read. There were group pictures with friends, skyline shots, and a cozy living room corner full of books. Claire's voice echoed in her head, "Canadians are kind. What if this one is?" Tentatively, she replied. The conversation started with books but widened quickly. They talked about cities, seasons, dreams. He told her about the Pacific air in Vancouver, how the mountain trails smelled different in the fall. She shared her quiet love for rainy Tuesdays and how she read poetry to her students even when it wasn't on the syllabus. Days became a blur of notifications. Every free minute she had, Emma was checking her phone. Connor never let the conversation fade. He asked follow-up questions, remembered things she mentioned in passing. When she told him about a hard day at school, he didn't just say, "Sorry to hear that." He recorded a 3-minute voice note offering comfort and gentle humor, and told her she deserved better, not just from her students, but from life. And slowly, she let her guard down. They video chatted late into the night, occasionally battling the time difference with sleepy smiles. On one call, she watched carefully how his eyes followed her when she laughed. He pointed out how her Portuguese accent gave certain English words a delicacy he'd never heard before. "You're exactly like I imagined," he said once. And though she didn't say it aloud, Emma felt the echo of the same sentiment. For the first time in years, she felt seen. 3 weeks into their connection, Emma's days had transformed. Her routine now centered around Connor, his messages in the morning, a voice note on her lunch break, evening calls that stretched longer than they should. The hours slipped by like whispers. Every time his name lit up her screen, a small rush of hope bloomed in her chest. It was fast, yes, but also steady, like falling into step with someone who already knew the pace of your heart. One night, as she lay on her couch under a thin blanket, sleepy from work and too much tea, the call came earlier than usual. His face appeared smiling but serious. He said her name in that soft way he had. "Emma, I've been thinking about something. Look, I know we haven't met in person yet, and maybe this is crazy, but I have to say it out loud." Her stomach tightened. "I'm not interested in something casual. I'm not after months of limbo. I've had that. I've done the game, but with you. It feels different." She nodded, unsure where he was going. "I want a future with you, not just calls and texts. I want to wake up beside someone who makes me feel what you make me feel. Someone real, someone like you." He reached off screen and returned holding a small navy blue box. It wasn't open. "I'm not asking you to say yes right now, but I want you to know where I stand. I love you, Emma. I want you to come to Vancouver in September. Let's meet. Let's see if this thing is just as real standing next to each other as it feels through this screen. And if it is, I hope one of those days you'll open this box." She didn't know what to say. Her heart raced, her thoughts scrambled between logic and longing. Connor smiled gently, sensing her hesitation. "Just think about it. I'm not rushing you, but I want you to come knowing how serious I am. I believe in us." That night, Emma lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. One part of her whispered caution. Another asked, "What if this is the love you never thought you'd have?" The airport was crowded, buzzing with voices and the sound of rolling suitcases on polished floors. Emma stood near gate 24, clutching her passport and boarding pass, her heart pounding faster than the engines of the plane she was about to board. She glanced at her phone one last time. A message from Connor read, "I can't believe I'm finally going to see you. Yellow tulips, remember. I'll be the guy holding them. I love you." She smiled, but beneath her excitement was a deep, shifting nervousness. Not fear exactly, more like the heavy weight of knowing everything was about to change. Only Claire knew the truth about where she was going and why. Emma had told the school it was a family emergency to avoid awkward questions. It didn't feel like a lie. It felt like survival. 17 hours later, with bags under her eyes and a knot in her stomach, Emma stepped into Vancouver's arrivals terminal. The crowd blurred until she saw him. Connor, real, tall, smiling, exactly as she remembered him, but more human. In his hand, a bouquet of yellow tulips. In the other, a handmade sign that read, "Emma Red Heart." Her eyes filled with tears. She walked toward him, almost unsure if her legs would hold her up. "You came," he whispered as he pulled her into a hug. He smelled like cedarwood and expensive cologne. "Of course I came," she whispered back. As they walked to the car, Connor carried her bag effortlessly, chatting about the sky, the weather, how dinner would be waiting. "We'll start the city tour tomorrow, but first, I figured you'd want to rest. I canceled the hotel, thought it was silly for you to spend money when my house is big and private." She paused, startled. "Connor, I thought we agreed I'd stay there for a few days." He smiled, but his voice was firmer. "I changed the plan. I want you comfortable with me. It's more personal that way." Emma hesitated for a second too long before nodding. As they drove toward the North Shore, the city faded behind them, and the trees began to rise like silent witnesses. The house sat at the edge of a forested slope, glass windows reflecting the mountains and thick pines beyond. It was beautiful, remote, and surrounded by silence. Connor parked the SUV in the gravel driveway and jumped out to grab her bags. "Welcome home," he said with a grin. Emma stepped out slowly, taking in the air, crisp and clean, but the stillness unnerved her. No neighbors, no sounds of passing cars, just the wind in the trees and the whistle of distant birds. Inside, the house looked like something from a magazine. Minimalist furniture, sleek kitchen, soft lighting, but it was also strangely impersonal. No photos, no clutter, no sign of a life lived over time, not even the golden retriever Benson. "Where S. Benson?" she asked, scanning the rooms. "At my parents' for a few days," Connor replied after a pause. "I wanted us to have some privacy, besides first impressions, right?" He smiled as if it were a joke, but something in the way he said it made her stomach twist. Emma's room was lovely, king-sized bed, soft sheets, massive windows overlooking endless forest. But when she tried to open a window for air, it didn't budge. "They're all sealed," Connor said from behind her. "Bear proof, it's safer this way." The first day passed quietly. Connor cooked, kept her entertained with stories, poured wine that he insisted she enjoy even though he wasn't drinking himself. "Antibiotics," he explained with a shrug. "Nothing serious." But the second day brought shadows. Whenever her phone was in her hand, he was beside her. "Who are you texting?" he'd ask, casual but sharp. When she suggested they go into the city, he frowned. "Why waste the time? You came here to be with me, right?" She nodded despite the knot forming in her throat. The deeper into the forest they were, the more distant she felt from herself. Yet every time she questioned her discomfort, she reminded herself he had been perfect online. Maybe it was just nerves, jet lag, newness, but something had changed. His eyes didn't soften the way they used to, and the silence outside no longer felt peaceful. It felt like a wall. The morning began before sunrise. Connor shook Emma gently awake. "Time to go." "I've packed everything," he said, already dressed, boots laced. She blinked in confusion. "Go where?" He smiled. "The trail, the one I promised. Just me, you, the trees. You're going to love it." Her instinct screamed no, but her voice was too tired to argue. He handed her a thermos of coffee and led her to the car, already loaded with backpacks, a cooler, and sleeping gear. As they drove, the city disappeared completely. Highways turned into narrow roads, then gravel paths. Emma opened her phone, no signal, nothing. She tried to memorize the turns, left at the red barn, right past the fallen log. Trees began to close in from all sides, thick and endless. Finally, they stopped at a small clearing, no parking lot, no signs, no other people. "Where's the trail marker?" she asked. "This is a private path," he replied. "A friend from the Park Service gave me access. Don't worry, I know it well." He strapped a heavy pack on her back and set the pace fast, too fast for a beginner. Her legs ached, lungs burned, but she kept going, afraid to ask for a break. Hours passed. The trail grew thinner, rougher. It led through roots and streams up sharp inclines until finally they reached a small open space in the woods. No bench, no fire ring, just dirt and trees. "We'll camp here," Connor said, setting down his bag. His mood shifted, quieter, tense. Emma tried to smile. "So, do we set up the tent?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled something from his pack. Metal, cold, handcuffs. Before she could react, he grabbed her wrist and locked one side to a thick pine tree. She gasped. "Connor, what are you doing?" He crouched in front of her, calm, too calm. "I've done everything perfectly, Emma, every detail, every step, and you followed just like the others." Her chest tightened, all the air sucked out in a single second. "Others?" she whispered. "That's right," he said, standing. "You're not the first woman I brought out here, but you might be the last." The cold bit into her skin as the sun dipped below the treetops. Emma sat against the tree, one wrist bleeding beneath the cuff. Her throat was dry, her mind racing. Connor moved around the clearing like nothing was wrong, humming softly as he set up the tent and arranged the bags. She watched in silence, calculating, listening for any sound beyond the crackle of dead branches beneath his boots. Once she thought she heard a rustle beyond the trees, but it was only the wind. Later he approached with a water bottle and a forced smile. "We need to make a few videos," he said. "Think of it like traveling content. Happy girlfriend, loving Vancouver, you'll do great." She shook her head, tears welling. "Please don't do this." His tone hardened. "Do you want to live, Emma?" With a trembling voice, she said what he wanted, smiled into the camera as a hunting knife glinted just out of frame. "I've decided to stay in Canada," she whispered. "Connor and we're happy." He saved the clip and nodded with satisfaction. "That will keep people from poking around for a while." That night he slept inside the tent, warm and zipped in. She lay on the freezing ground, chained, wrapped in a thin sleeping bag, trying not to cry too loudly. Around 3 in the morning, a sound broke the stillness. Steps. Heavy, slow, not human. Then out of the trees, a massive shape appeared. A bear. It sniffed, shuffled closer toward the campsite, eyes reflecting moonlight. Emma's heart nearly stopped. And that's when she screamed, not at the bear, but for it. Loud and high and desperate. Connor burst from the tent. "What the?" He saw the bear and froze. "Don't move," he hissed, but it was too late. The bear lunged. In the chaos, something flew from his jacket pocket. It hit the ground with a tiny metallic clink. The handcuff key. Emma stretched her arm until her wrist throbbed. Her fingertips brushed the key. One more inch. She felt the teeth of the metal slip into the lock. Twist. Click. The cuff fell away. She ran, branches tore at her arms as she sprinted blindly into the forest. Her feet, bare and bleeding, stumbled over roots and rocks, but she didn't stop. The bear's roar echoed behind her, along with Connor's furious screaming. Emma pushed harder, lungs burning, vision blurred by tears. She had no idea where she was going, only that every step away from him was a step toward possible survival. The darkness was thick, turning the trees into moving silhouettes. She ducked behind a fallen log, listening. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Then she heard it, footsteps, deliberate and slow. He was tracking her. "Emma," he called through the trees, voice calm and coaxing now, like none of this had happened. "Come on, love, let's not make this worse. I'm hurt. You've caused enough damage." She stayed still. A twig snapped to her left. A flashlight beam passed nearby. Then silence again. Emma waited until the footsteps faded before creeping out, blood from her feet already drying in the cold. After what felt like an hour, her ears picked up a new sound, running water. She followed it, stumbled toward it, a river. Kneeling, she drank in gasps, then looked upstream and saw Salvation, a cabin on the other bank. It was small, dark, possibly abandoned, but it was shelter. And maybe, just maybe, there was help. She forced her aching body across the narrow bridge, collapsed at the door, and found it unlocked. Inside, it smelled of wood and dust, an old ranger cabin, she thought. Then she saw it, an emergency radio fixed to the wall. Emma rushed over, twisting knobs, praying it still worked. "Hello, please, someone help me," she cried into the mic. "He's trying to kill me. I escaped. I'm at a cabin near a river." Static. Then a voice crackled back. "This is Ranger Morrison. Identify your location. Help is en route." The door slammed open. Connor stood there, face bloodied, eyes wild. "I told you, Emma, no one's coming." She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy metal pan, and with every ounce of strength swung it straight into his skull. He collapsed, and the radio repeated, "Help is on the way."